Austin, Texas. Home to great music, amazing food, and potentially home to one of the most innovative education and budget savings plans the country has ever seen. Texas is currently facing a $27 billion budget hole. To solve the budget crisis, legislators have come up with a plan that would save taxpayers over $2 billion over the course of the next 2 years, and at the same time, give parents and students a choice in their education. It's called the Taxpayer Savings Program. Currently, Texans spend over $11,000 of their tax dollars per student on education.
The Taxpayer Savings Grant Program saves $2 billion in spending by allowing parents to move their kids from public schools to private schools and take a portion of the money that the state would have spent on them and apply it toward tuition. The program essentially says the maximum amount of the grant is the amount that you pay in tuition to a private school, or $5,143, which is about 60% of what the state of Texas currently pays toward maintenance and operations expenditures. So every time a child moves from the public school to a private school, the state saves about $3,400. About 350,000 students are expected to take advantage of this program over the course of the first 2 years. You do the math, that's about $1 billion a year, $2 billion in savings for taxpayers.
Under the current proposed budget cuts, public schools would lose approximately $320 a year in funding per student. Because students utilizing a savings grant would take only around 60% of per student spending, under this plan, public schools will actually increase their funding by $473 per student.
By taking only 60% of the money that would otherwise be spent on the child in public school, you're saving 40% of the money. But by leaving a substantial amount of the money behind, you are actually raising per pupil spending on each child who chooses to stay. And that phrase, left behind, is not a good term, because everybody can choose where they want to go. If you want 100% of the funding spent on you, go to public school. If you're willing to take less but get a choice of where you want to go, then take less.
The Taxpayer Savings Program would turn proposed cuts in public school funding into a net gain of more than $150 per student.
What happens under this plan is every time a child moves from a public school to a private school, more money is left behind in the public schools. So all the local funding, for example, all the money that comes from local property taxes that currently stay in the district will continue to stay in the district and be used for the kids who are still attending the public schools. So kids currently in public schools actually end up getting more money as a result of this program.
Right now, Texas schools are $101 billion in debt. They're constantly building new facilities and adding to the taxpayers' burden. Property taxes are going up simply by virtue of the student enrollment increase. This really gives schools an opportunity to take a breather, to focus on the kids that are there, not focus on simply growing, but doing a better job with the students that are in their school district.
And why now? Why pass a sweeping school reform bill in the middle of budget negotiations?
The time is right in many ways for the Taxpayer Savings Grant Program because of the fiscal difficulties and the fiscal challenges that the state faces. Because we know that the TSG program offers a significant opportunity for fiscal savings. It's in many ways almost a perfect storm for real reform that'll help students and help parents, help schools, and help the state's budget.
Some might see this program as an attack on teachers, but teachers actually stand to see an increase in their pay under the Taxpayer Savings Program.
The first thing we looked at was teacher compensation. Like any other business, if you only have one employer in a company town, for example, or an industry that's dominated by a single company, then the individual employees can't negotiate for better pay or better benefits. So they actually get ripped off by the market power that this one employer has. If you can increase the number of employers, then each employee has a better bargaining stance, is able to get better benefits and higher pay. We estimate that teacher pay would go up about $2,000 to $3,000 per year per teacher. In a city like Austin, Texas, where there's actually in a city like Houston, Texas, where there's 298 public schools right now, over 300 private schools, you would go, if you were a public school teacher, you would go from having a single choice for public school employment by the district to having 600 schools competing for you. We estimate that the average salary for a teacher in Houston would go up $12,000 as a result of this program. So it'd be a huge benefit for teachers.